On October 10, 2025, at the central military base of Ouagadougou, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, President and Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, delivered what analysts now call the most decisive military statement since the Sahel alliance was formed. In front of senior officers, defense engineers, and national television cameras, Traoré officially handed over a new fleet of heavy military equipment to the Burkina Faso Army. The delivery included armored vehicles, artillery units, and tactical support trucks, all designated for the Rapid Reaction Artillery Battalion (BACR) and the Rapid Armored Battalion (BBIR), two elite divisions created under his military restructuring program. This event was not merely administrative. It was a moment charged with symbolism, a declaration of sovereignty. By publicly transferring the new machines of war to his generals, Traoré was telling both allies and adversaries that Burkina Faso would no longer outsource its defense to foreign powers. The age of dependency was over. Burkina Faso's military transformation is not taking place in isolation. The country is part of the Alliance of Sahel States (AES), alongside Mali and Niger, a regional coalition born from shared struggles against terrorism and shared disillusionment with Western military interventions. For this alliance, the October 10th ceremony represented a strategic signal. The Sahel was beginning to defend itself with its own hands. Inside the capital, the mood was one of restrained pride. For years, the Burkina Faso army had been viewed as under-equipped and overstretched. Now, images of armored vehicles rolling across Ouagadougou's streets, marked not by foreign flags, but by the Burkina Faso emblem, spoke louder than any political speech. For ordinary citizens, this was proof that a new era of national capability was taking form. According to official defense communications, the transfer consisted of armored troop carriers, artillery support vehicles, all-terrain patrol trucks, and logistics platforms. All of these were immediately assigned to BACR and BBIR, the Rapid Reaction Artillery and Armored Battalions units, specifically trained to respond within hours to insurgent attacks in multiple provinces. But what caught the attention of analysts was not only the quantity of equipment, it was its origin. Since 2023, Burkina Faso has been pursuing a dual-track policy: domestic assembly and retrofitting through local engineering teams trained under the Iron Shield Initiative, and strategic procurement partnerships with non-Western allies, primarily regional manufacturers and new partners across Asia and Eastern Europe. This shift reflects a deliberate move away from France-based or Western suppliers, whose conditional aid had long tied Burkina Faso's defense policy to foreign political influence. By diversifying its supply chain and building its own mechanical workshops near Ouagadougou and Bobo-Dioulasso, the Burkina Faso Army has started maintaining and modifying vehicles locally, a small but critical step towards self-reliance. Official figures released by the Ministry of Defense show that nearly 35% of the vehicles delivered this year were locally reassembled or upgraded using imported base models. This means that for the first time in the country's modern history, part of the armored fleet now carries both foreign steel and Burkina Faso craftsmanship. Inside military circles, this approach is described as hybrid sovereignty, combining imported resources with domestic engineering to break the dependency cycle. Traoré himself emphasized this during his speech. "We are not buying symbols. We are building capacity. Every bolt tightened by a Burkina Faso hand strengthens the foundation of our independence." Beyond rhetoric, this new procurement model sends a clear message: Burkina Faso is investing in defense as an industrial sector, not just a security necessity. Factories that once produced civilian transport parts are now being converted into small-scale assembly plants for armored vehicles, spare parts, and ammunition. Such measures not only equip the army, but also create jobs, stimulate local innovation, and inspire a sense of national participation. For a country long portrayed as dependent on donors and humanitarian relief, the very act of producing its own defense assets marks a psychological victory, one that may prove as important as any battle won in the field. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is not simply arming his forces. He is redefining how Burkina Faso fights, thinks, and sustains its defense. For decades, the Burkinabe army structure was reactive and fragmented. Troops were deployed only after an attack had occurred, often without proper coordination or air support. That model, born during years of foreign-led counterterrorism operations, left the nation permanently one step behind. The new doctrine reverses this logic. The creation of Rapid Reaction Units, BAKIR and BBIR, is part of a wider effort to transform Burkina Faso into a state capable of preemptive defense. Rather than waiting for violence, the army is being reorganized to anticipate it, using intelligence networks, mobile artillery, and armored convoys that can strike within hours. This doctrine also aligns with the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, a pact signed with Mali and Niger that pledges mutual military assistance and intelligence sharing. Since the alliance's foundation in 2023, the three nations have sought to develop a coordinated regional defense strategy, independent of former colonial powers. For the AES, Burkina Faso's modernization effort is both a test and a symbol. If it works here, it can work across the Sahel. From a logistical standpoint, the doctrine relies on three pillars: mobility, rapid deployment across long distances and rough terrain; local control supply chains and maintenance centers within national borders; interoperability equipment, standardized for cooperation with Mali and Niger under joint operations. This combination marks a shift from dependency to operational autonomy. Burkina Faso no longer frames its security in terms of international partnerships, but as a sovereign system of regional solidarity. Defense analysts across West Africa view this transformation with cautious respect. Dr. Souleymane Konaté, a regional security expert, summarized it plainly. What Traoré is building is not just an army, it's a model for how African states reclaim military agency after decades of dependency. However, this ambitious strategy is not without its constraints: logistical and maintenance costs. Acquiring heavy equipment is only the beginning. Sustaining it through maintenance, spare parts, and technical training requires consistent funding and industrial organization. Without these, new vehicles could easily turn into static symbols rather than functional assets. Risk of escalation. Increased firepower can trigger retaliatory violence. Armed groups, sensing the army's growing capacity, may respond with more aggressive tactics, ambushes, or alliances with transnational networks. Maintaining control of escalation will be as critical as maintaining the equipment itself. International perception. Outside observers, especially Western governments and NGOs, may interpret this rearmament as a slide toward militarization or authoritarianism. While Traoré presents the initiative as a patriotic necessity, critics warn it could centralize too much power in the hands of the military. Balancing sovereignty with transparency will determine how the international community reacts to this new phase of Burkinabe defense policy. Government communications emphasized that this reinforcement would allow the army to shift from a defensive to a proactive stance, no longer reacting after attacks occur, but anticipating and neutralizing threats before they spread. Military observers, including several regional security experts, have noted that this new fleet could significantly improve operational coverage across key northern axes, such as Kayadori and the Malian border zones, corridors that have long been the epicenter of insurgent activity. If deployed effectively, these vehicles could bridge the mobility gap that has long crippled the Burkinabe Army's response time in rural zones. Already, early reports from the Ministry of Defense suggest an increase in successful patrol operations and faster intervention in at-risk communes. Humanitarian agencies have confirmed that the number of secure convoys traveling toward conflict-affected provinces has risen modestly since the handover, a cautious but encouraging sign that the new equipment is beginning to have a tangible effect. However, experts also warn that these improvements remain fragile and conditional. The Sahel's geography, vast plains, uneven terrain, and limited infrastructure poses serious logistical challenges. Many operational areas still lack paved roads, forcing armored units to navigate sand and mud, which shortens vehicle lifespan and slows deployment. Moreover, intelligence and coordination remain critical weak points. Without reliable field information, mobility alone cannot guarantee victory. As one analyst put it, armor can move fast, but without eyes on the ground, it's still fighting blind. Thus, while the first signs of progress are visible, the true impact of these new resources will depend on the Army's ability to combine technology, intelligence, and strategy, not just machinery. Burkina Faso has made the leap from reaction to action. The next challenge is ensuring that every move counts. Although the October 10th handover was hailed by the government as a symbolic success and a patriotic milestone, several critical voices have emerged within and outside Burkina Faso. Behind the impressive parade of armored vehicles, structural weaknesses still threaten the long-term effectiveness of the reform. 1. Weapons alone are not enough. Military experts repeatedly warn that modern equipment does not equal modern warfare. Without deep structural reform, including better intelligence systems, officer training, and improved troop morale, the new hardware could become little more than a temporary boost. Analysts from regional security institutes have noted that several Burkinabe units still operate with limited communication capacity and lack synchronized command structures. As one defense expert summarized, machines can fight battles, but only strategy wins wars. 2. The question of transparency. A second area of criticism comes from economists and civil society groups. While the population supports the goal of national defense, many have begun to demand clarity about the source and cost of the new equipment. Was it fully financed by the national budget or through undisclosed foreign partnerships? How much strain does this level of militarization place on a country already struggling with food inflation and reconstruction costs? For a government that has made transparency and self-reliance its banner, these unanswered questions could erode public trust if left unaddressed. 3. Human rights concerns. A more sensitive issue concerns the behavior of elite units, particularly the Rapid Intervention Battalions (BIR). While they are celebrated for reclaiming territories and protecting civilians, they have also been accused by local NGOs and international media, such as Le Monde, of excessive force during operations. These reports, whether isolated or systemic, create a dilemma for Traoré's government: how to maintain military momentum while preserving moral legitimacy. Observers insist that the reinforcement of the army must be accompanied by strict human rights oversight, not as a foreign demand, but as a national imperative for credibility. 4. The challenge of military doctrine. Finally, even within the ranks of the armed forces, some officers express caution about the sustainability of Traoré's military model. Heavy armor and artillery can showcase national power, but without long-term maintenance, spare parts, and continuous funding, the risk is to create an illusion of strength rather than enduring capacity. Doctrine must evolve beyond symbolic displays toward strategic adaptability, intelligence-led missions, and regional coordination. Otherwise, as one officer remarked privately, we will have powerful machines standing still while the enemy moves lightly and fast. Despite these critiques, there is broad agreement on one point: Traoré's ambition has changed the national conversation. The question is no longer whether Burkina Faso can build a strong army, but whether it can make that strength sustainable, ethical, and intelligently led. Looking ahead, 3 paths lie before Burkina Faso. The first, the path of consolidated success, envisions the new armored divisions transforming security on the ground, stabilizing key northern corridors, reducing attacks, and restoring confidence in the state. Such success would cement Traoré's legitimacy and position Burkina Faso as the strategic heart of a self-reliant Sahel. The second, a more modest outcome, brings limited tactical gains. The army could improve mobility and morale, but falls short of deep structural reform. Without logistics intelligence and long-term maintenance, the new machinery risks becoming a symbol of progress without real endurance. The third, the path of backlash, is the most dangerous. If military power breeds excesses or alienates civilians, the result could be renewed resistance, internal division, and growing mistrust at home and abroad. In all cases, one truth remains: constant firepower alone will not guarantee victory. Traoré's challenge is to maintain the delicate balance between strength, legitimacy, and restraint, turning national defense into a lasting pillar of sovereignty rather than a passing display of power. Le geste du 10 octobre 2025 n'est pas une simple dotation militaire, c'est une pièce maîtresse dans la stratégie de reconstruction par le pouvoir de Traoré. Il incarne l'idéologie d'un Burkina Faso qui refuse de subir mais choisit d'agir. Mais au-delà du blindage, au-delà du canon, il y a un pari, celui qu'un État peut gagner le cœur de ses citoyens, en démontrant qu'il peut les protéger. Et vous, comment jugez-vous ce tournant? S'agit-il d'une étape essentielle vers la souveraineté burkinabé, ou d'un pari risqué au bord de l'épuisement militaire? La réponse pourrait définir l'avenir du Sahel.